and welcome to the Scale Model Geek. My next project will be a post-alien invasion scene, and I'll be using this Tamiya kit of the Volkswagen Beetle, and I'll be combining it with this 3D print that I did of this alien. He will be called Trevor from now on. And you can see the details, though it's a bit blurry, the detail is actually wonderful on this kit. I'll be sticking him on top of a roof in the middle of a scene. We start off building the kit just going by the instruction sheet. I'm doing the suspension system here. This part's pretty straightforward. I'm not spending too much time on it because the car is going to be glued to the base. It won't be seen, so I don't need to add all the detail in there, just the basics. The front suspension. I do need the wheels to move just so I can position the car and the wheels the way I want it to be a bit later on. Now it's time for the interior. I have no idea why they modelled it in yellow because it's a pretty gross colour. And also the headrest. I was surprised at how much lack of detail there is in the tub of it. There aren't that many parts in this kit. Now the handbrake needs to go in. And the front bonnet. This part of the construction is pretty straightforward, it's very easy to do. But this bit was really fiddly, putting on the little handles there, the door handles. My fat little fingers struggled, but we got there. And the rear view mirrors on the side. What I want to do here was actually scuff up the sides of the seats a bit to give it a bit of wear and tear. So I'm just using my Dremel tool to actually cut into the plastic. And it's actually working really well because it's kind of melting the plastic as well as cutting away to it, and it's leaving this really serrated edge to the side. It looks really, really authentic. I'm really happy with the way that's working out. Here I'm just scoring the seat because I want to actually have the seat leaning back a bit. And a quick test fit to make sure I've got the angle leaning back a bit. Not 100% happy with it, so I try to move it back a bit. Unfortunately I snapped it, but not too much of a problem because the angle came up great. And I just put a bit of glue in there to keep it in place. Now I've sprayed the undercoat off camera here, and this is where I've decided I kind of want to do something really interesting. So I've come up with the idea of having some battle damage done to it. So just chop off the side mirror, clean it up a bit so it's nice and even. And then pull out the precision screwdriver just to give some room for the cables to come through. And while I was at it, I was kind of on a roll, so I thought, yeah, I might just chop off the other side. But what I've decided to do on this side is actually have the mirror like it's been pushed back a bit. You know, something that happens to us at shopping centres all the time. Now for the first coat, I'm using the steel here to represent the metal body. A nice even coat of it right around. And now for the seats, the base coat of dark sea grey. I'm using this German red brown for the actual rust layer of the car. Also a nice even coat of this. And for the final Juco colour, I'm using this alien purple. Also a nice even coat. I really actually like this colour. It's looking really good. The irony in this is I started off with black plastic, gave it an undercoat of grey, and now I'm painting it black again. Now the light grey, and I'm going to use this for the inserts of the seats. Now I did take a couple coats of this. Now onto the black for the dash. I'm using the light rust for the insides of the wheel wells. Now they're usually made out of plastic in real life, so they don't really rust, but I thought it'll give some visual interest to it rather than having a black void. Now the light grey for the actual dry brushing of the seats. And this really brings out the detail. Now I'm using this panel line accent colour. I'm using this to detail all the edges and add a bit of weathering as well while I'm at it. Now the snakebite leather, I'm going to use this for the wash. Now I've really thinned this down with quite a fair bit of water, so it's extremely thin and watered down. And the reason I'm adding a whole bunch of weathering inside the car is because I'm going to have the two windows on the side of, rather the door windows smashed out and also the rear window smashed out. So I'm assuming a lot of weathering will get in the car. Now I'm using this German red brown for some of the rust stains on the wheel rims, but I kind of did get carried away. I don't think it needed that much rust on there, but it is what it is now. Now this is where I realised I need to put in the dash decal, and oh, that was a bit of a headache to get it in there. Kept on moving around. And let's put the steering wheel in there. And the seats. And it's really come together well. What I wanted to do with the wheels was give them flat tires. So I'm using this 2-part epoxy ribbon from Green Stuff. And I glued the tyres on because when I chop off a portion at the bottom, I didn't want the actual wheels, the tyres rather, to fall off. So they're super glued in place and then chopped off. Just cut off equal parts of this two-parter, mix it together, and then turn it into a little sausage or a little worm and just run around the outside of the cut and kind of shape it so it looks like it's a flat tire. Once that's to the shape I like it, I then use the sprue glue and I run a bead of the glue around the edge. And that leaves it with a really nice curve. I do need to paint all the tires with the black because they're a bit rubbery and shiny. I need to weather them down a bit, so I give them this matte black and then dry brush them with this light grey. Now it's time to weather up the body, and I'm using 800 grit sandpaper here, and the whole idea is just to sand through the top layer or two to expose some of the bottom layers, the rust layer and the metal layer below that. And you've got to be very careful here because if you go too far you'll go straight through to the plastic, and you can see the 3 different layers there. And while I was doing this process, I was kind of humming and hawing. I wasn't 100% sure that I was liking the still coming through. So I decided to go over that with the sponge in the red brown and just dabbing it, softening it up a bit. With the silver shining through, it just didn't feel like it'd been out in the weather long enough. I'm just adding a bit of rust texture here. And then a wash of this light rust, and it's heavily watered down. Now to add a bit more weathering, I'm using this streaking grime. Again, heavily watered down. And I'm swapping between the two brushes. One has the paint in it and the other one's just a damp brush that I use to spread the grime around. Now some accessories, I actually printed up these weapons because I wanted to show a bit of a type of a firefight around the car. And you can see the amazing detail that's come out. That's the trigger there. Have a look at that. It's amazing. A bit hard to see while it's clear. I also made up some bottles and crates here. But I kind of didn't end up going with the crate because it was just way too big. And there's some soft drink bottles. And to paint all the weapons, the easiest way was just to put it on some masking tape. And just using the black once again. Then to do the other side, another piece of masking tape, flipped over the weapon and spray the other side. Now I'm going to use this gunmetal from Ammo for the dry brushing, and you can see it really brings out the detail. Now to me, I've got this masking tapey thingy panels, and it's actually not a bad idea. I've never used it before, so it did take a bit of practice to get it on properly. I had to stick it on, then peel it off, just constantly adjusting it to get it right. There are some fine lines in the actual clear plastic to give you like a guide where to put them. A bit fiddly, but they seem to work all right. And because I didn't have any side windows in the car, I needed to chop off the door windows. So that was a matter of scoring and snapping and then filing it down. I also taped the back of the clear parts to stop any overspray getting onto it. And I'm using the black for the actual wheel surrounds. Two coats wasn't dense enough for it, and the light kept coming through the back of it. So 3 coats was sufficient. And I was really happy with the way this masked up. It was fairly good. Time to glue all the windows into place. Now, I did have a bit of a fiddle with these windscreen wipers. I think they were designed to actually run along the bottom of the windscreen, but I do need them portion up the way of the windscreen. You'll see a bit later on in the video why I needed to do that. So a bit of adjusting, a bit of bending of the windscreen wipers to get them into place properly. And of course, there's 2 of them. Double the fun. Now what I'm doing here is cutting out the rear windscreen, because this will be the smashed glass. Now with the Dremel tool, I think I must have had the blade spinning too fast, because it wasn't really cutting, it was more melting. It worked pretty well, popped straight out. And a bit of filing to clean it up and clean up the edges. And then I'm just jagging up the edge of the glass there, just to give the impression that it's actually shattered. And of course a bit of touching up after all that mess. Now with this white grey, I'm going to weather the actual windscreens with it. Again, heavily diluted with water. And though it looks really, really heavy, it actually dries very clear. You can see there the difference. It looks really good. It looks like it's been out in the weather for quite a while. Now, one thing I almost forgot was the rear vision mirror inside the car. I kept it on the sprue there simply because it was a lot easier to paint. And once I cut it off, I just touched up that little small bit where the sprue joined up. And for the mirror section, I used the chrome metal here. Now I decided I might do some more details for inside the car, and I printed up these maps and also some air fresheners. Now one mistake I did do, I should have done a lot more contrast in the actual map image. It looks pretty good, but it kind of looks a bit washed out once you get it down to that scale. So to represent a map, I definitely would recommend doing a much heavier contrast in the final image before you print it. Don't forget to smash that like button, hit and subscribe please, and help me grow this channel. Now this turned out to be super fiddly. It's got to be the most fiddly thing I've ever done in my life. But I finally worked out. Now I did make a bit of a mistake trying to put this in because I'm located in Australia and we drive on the right hand side, and I actually had the mirror angled the wrong way. This car is a left hand drive, so I needed to unglue everything, then re-stick it, and I used super glue the second time around and fixed up the angle of the mirror. These are the soda bottles, drink bottles. Just painting up the lids here. I'm just using the steel paint. And some red for the actual label. Now to add a bit more weathering inside the car. Now I'm just using a bunch of debris that I've got that I found in the back of the garden. And here is the I think it's an M4, maybe an M16, M4 maybe, I don't know. It's a gun. And just gluing that into place. And a handgun. And heaps of debris throughout the whole car. For the glue, I'm just using PVA glue or wood glue, and it's been diluted. You can see it's looking great. The weathering is really good. Now I thought I'll add some like little bushes growing inside it. And finally the car gets to be assembled. And it's time for Trevor. Now I do need to chop off his feet because they don't quite conform to the right angle of the car. So with a Dremel tool, just chop both his feet off. Drilled some holes in there. I'm just using a piece of wire to actually secure the two pieces together. And once they're super glued into place, I can then angle them and get the right position that I need his feet to be. Now Trevor's feet were a bit of a pain to get into the right place. Kept on swiveling around. Gave me a minor headache after this. But Trevor cooperated in the end. I won that battle. So once the wires were at the correct angles, it was time to glue it all together, just using some super glue. Then held them in place for a minute or so while the glue dried. Now I needed to actually fix up the joints between the feet and his ankles, so again back to this two-part epoxy and just mold it into place and use the stick to shape it, and with a bit of an undercoat it came up great. Now, Trevor needs a base coat, so I'm just using this black because the colour scheme for him is going to be more of a metallic look to him. And I'm going to be using a technique I've never done before. So first things first, I'm using the black, then with this silver I then spray from one angle and effectively from the top down. So it catches all the top ends, but the bottom sections it doesn't actually paint onto it. So I end up with these shadows. You can see there. So all the bottom bits of Trevor are black and the top areas are silver. Now this Colorshift metal paint, this is the first time I'm using it. I was kind of excited when I discovered this stuff. And the paint actually changes as you change your angles of viewing the actual kit, or rather the model. You can see some colour shifts in him. And then when I went on to this Mystic Gold, which goes from a yellow to a green. And it works really well on the back. You can see the changes. Really happy with this paint scheme. And just touching up. Look at that. Looks so good, that paint. I'm using a combination of burnt flesh and flesh. And it's time to paint the actual horns on him. The bone sections. And the colour of that came up really well. Now this burnt red, I'm going to use it as a wash over the bones once again. And the final touch will be this ivory, again completely washed down. And just doing the tips of the bone sections. And I decided what I might do is give him a bit of a headpiece. I'm using the clear red. And I suppose it's more like a some type of insignia. Some type of status symbol for him. And then with this light metal, quick dry brush of that red area. And I thought I might do his shoulders as well while I was there. He's really coming alive, he's looking great. Time for the base. I'm just using this 6x8 inch picture frame. I'm also going to use this XPS foam, which I've never actually ever used before. It's a fairly new discovery for me. I've already cut it down to size. It's really soft and light, and you can just cut it with a utility knife, a hobby knife. So I've just taken out the back and the glass. I need to create spacer between the frame and the actual base. So I'm cutting up this balsa wood. Super glue to glue it into place. And then some 5mm araldite to actually secure the back plate on. And the foam bit just pops straight in. So I'm just working out the orientation of how I'm going to have everything in this little scene. Now for the base, I'm going to use a black again. This black pops up everywhere. Off camera, I already did a coat of general purpose filler, which has given a really nice texture to it. These are the road lines that I'm masking. And the ruler to make sure they're spaced evenly. And just some off-white. And putting the lines on diagonally gives just a bit more visual interest. Now back to the snakebite leather to add a bit of the weathering to the road. Now with this pencil, and because the XPS foam is so soft, I can create these potholes. I'm just randomly going around and putting in potholes just to add a bit more visual interest. And then this Panzer grey is to actually dry brush the whole road. You can see the detail pops straight away once I start dry brushing it. I'm really happy with the way this road's coming along. Now I'm happy with the base, it's time to actually glue the car down. This is the point of no return. Once it goes down, that is it. Time to decorate it, and I'm using this scenic grass. And there's so much of it, so much grass there, I can just chop it in half. And using the PVA glue with some holes created by a stick, I'll glue them into place. Diluted PVA glue once again. And lots of debris around. What I've done here is just sprinkled some crushed rock salt and then just covered it with diluted PVA glue. And this is to just assimilate the broken glass from the rear windscreen. Some on the ground as well. Now some of those little bigger pieces I ended up removing once it was all dry. And now a quick wash to unify all the colour scheme a little bit better. Now time to glue Trevor down. This is going to make or break the whole project, and luckily it worked out great. Now one thing I did want to add, another idea I came up with was I thought I might add some bullets to the ground. I did that by stretching some sprue. I didn't have any brass colour, so I just used gold. That was close enough. This was really fiddly also. These things are super small. But they really were worth the effort. Just gave a bit more narrative to the actual diorama. And another weapon to go underneath the car. Of course I need to add some debris around it. And the project is done. Really happy with the way this came out, so I think it's time I show you the glamour shot.